Your wife had thyroid cancer, correct?
Correct.
Before we get into that further, is there or can there be a connection between that and cancer? And was that maybe her case, like you said?
Yes, there's a strong correlation between the two. So, what happens first, it's hard to determine if we can find out, where the problem started. But with my wife, we have 2 kids at home. She works. Mm-hmm. She's a full-time mom. She has a job. I have a job. We moved our house, so we moved residences. She was under stress. She had kids. And so you kind of miss these symptoms of being tired. And, maybe it's because of the kids. I'm not sleeping. Maybe the stress from work has caused me to be like this. I'm putting a few pounds. So you have a tendency to ignore those signs and symptoms. And then one day, she came to me and she says, I've got this thing in my throat. She says, what do you think it is? And right away, I knew what it was. And I wasn't a thyroid specialist at the time, but I knew it was her thyroid. And so we followed the conventional medicine model. We live in the city of Chicago. We've got some of the best teaching hospitals in the world here. So we went, talked to these physicians, and unfortunately, the best route of therapy at the time was to have her thyroid removed. And it's when we had the thyroidectomy that they found the cancer. So thank God it was out. But that's when everything started to go wrong. So they put her on replacement hormone. Unfortunately, it didn't work. So, that's when I looked at the situation. I said, I got to do something to help my wife. These doctors aren't helping her. The whole model is failing her. So I started just doing research. I knew nothing about the disease at the time, but I got on the phone. I called specialists around the country, around the world. I did research. I traveled to seminars. I spent a lot of money traveling, trying to, I was in a no-win situation. I had to help my wife because no one else was doing it. So, and then I started to find this connection between food and hypothyroidism. So the first thing that I found was that there's a strong correlation between food sensitivities and people that have thyroid symptoms of hypothyroidism. And so the first connection that I saw with food sensitivities and hypothyroidism was this connection between gluten intolerance and hypothyroidism. And here's the problem. My wife, she's Italian, she's a carb queen, and I had to tell her to get off pasta. Not an easy thing to do. So up to this point, I had feared for her life, but now I fear for my life having to tell my wife this. But we did that. We took her off gluten. And in less than 3 weeks, she'd lost 8 pounds, and she gained her energy back. And it's the only thing that helped her, and it happened in 3 weeks. So that's when I said, there's got to be thousands of people out there that can use this information. And so the research I did and the books that I found were great for clinicians to look at, but I said there's nothing here for people to use. And so that's when I put the book together, The Hypothyroid Diet, as a program for people to use so they can start feeling better, because a lot of times the medication just doesn't work.
So in your wife's case, no thyroid now, correct?
No thyroid, correct.
Okay, so what sort of things need to happen for her? Is it medication then for the rest of her life, or what sort of things without that?
Yes, the body is an amazing thing, and it's said that, our pancreas secretes insulin, but without the pancreas, the brain can actually secrete insulin. So the body's an amazing thing. And so there are other parts of the body that can actually create thyroid hormone, but we're not relying on that. So we do have to keep her on thyroid hormone for the rest of her life until numbers change or something else changes where we see, hey, she's feeling great and we don't need as much medication as we did in the past. But that is a big part of it. But the other big part of it is my wife has what they call Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune form of hypothyroidism. And that's a big problem with this whole condition is most physicians see hypothyroidism as hypothyroidism, when in case there is hypothyroidism, but you could also have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disorder for hypothyroidism. So the body is actually attacking the thyroid, causing all these symptoms. So people that have these autoimmune disorders really have to modulate their immune system. They have to regulate this through diet, reducing stress, lifestyle factors, exercise, and supplementation. So in conjunction with taking thyroid hormone, she also takes supplements. She watches her diet, and she tries to monitor her stress, exercise. But she does all that, she feels pretty good most of the time.